Hello there. Thanks for watching. My views on news tensions arising between Ethiopia and Egypt. The two countries have issued some statements in the past 24 hours. Talks have collapsed. Trilateral talks have collapsed. Secondly, Somali region of Ethiopia. Last year, Al Shabaab tried to make inroads into the Somali region. Al-Shabaab fighters entered Ethiopian territory. A counter-offensive was launched by security forces. Now, security forces claim that more than a dozen Al-Shabaab members have been arrested in Ethiopia. Where were they when they were arrested? What were they planning? Firstly, viewers, alarming developments in the Horn of Africa, East Africa, Red Sea countries. Instability on the rise, no lasting solution to conflicts being found, it seems. Egypt and Ethiopia in the last 24 hours have issued some statements accusing each other. I think Egypt uh, threatened Ethiopia. It was a veiled threat, you can say. What happened? Well, Abiy PM Abiy of Ethiopia and Abdul Fattah al-Sisi, who got a new mandate last week, met a few months ago, and after that we saw start of talks to resolve the deadlock over GERD, Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam. Downstream River Nile countries, Egypt and Sudan, have been objecting to the construction of dam by Ethiopia in the Manishangal Gumur region of Ethiopia. Dam is more than 90% complete. I think four fillings have been completed. Dam is generating electricity too, but the parties could not reach an agreement so far. We have seen several rounds of talks in the past few years mediated by African Union and some other entities, but still there is deadlock. After Abdul Fattah al-Sisi and PM Abiy met earlier this year, talks resume, trilateral talks resume with participation of Ethiopian, Sudanese, and Egyptian officials. Four rounds of talks have been held so far, and the last one was held in Addis Ababa, Ethiopian capital. Two rounds of talks were held in Cairo and the two in Addis Ababa. Last round of talks collapsed yesterday. After that, Egypt issued a statement, and then Ethiopia issued a statement responding to statement from Egyptian government. Egyptian government in its statement said that Egypt now reserves its guaranteed right under international charter to defend its water and national security if it comes under threat. This is a veiled threat from Egypt to Ethiopia that Egypt won't sit idle. Egypt has been calling the construction of the dam in Ethiopia a threat to its national security. Egypt now says it will implement its plans to protect its waters and security, which is under threat. Coupled with this statement are regional developments too. In Sudan, we are seeing two alliances formed so far. Egypt, Eritrea, Sudanese military on one side, Ethiopia, UAE, and RSF on the other side. And Egypt has long been accused by Ethiopia of interfering in Ethiopian internal matters, of backing armed groups in Ethiopia. After the collapse of talks, we're going to see more tensions between the two countries. Ethiopia responded to this statement from Egypt. Ethiopian Foreign Ministry issued a statement, and very strong language has been used by Ethiopian Foreign Ministry in its statement criticizing Egyptian government. Colonial era mentality. These are the words used by Ethiopian Ministry of Foreign Affairs. That Egypt maintained colonial era mentality in the talks. That is why talks collapsed, because Egyptian officials created roadblocks to efforts to resolve the issue. So this is the situation that the two countries are accusing each other. Talks have collapsed. What is next? Yes, what is next? Any signs of direct confrontation between these two countries? Will Egypt resort to legal remedy? Will it file a case against Ethiopia at some international forum? Will it adopt the tactic of proxy war by backing Ethiopian disgruntled elements? Will it form a regional alliance to encircle Ethiopia? Will it strengthen its ties with Eritrea, with Somalia? It's building an air base in Somalia. It is on very good terms with Eritrea. That remains to be seen, but Egypt Ethiopia relations are set to further deteriorate, and we could see its impact in bilateral and regional tensions, I think, in coming days. Several rounds of talks have been held so far. Egypt wants a legally binding agreement about the operations of GERD. Ethiopia does not want to sign any legally binding agreement. It said that it will share the data of dam operations with the Sudanese Egyptian government. It does not want to be committed to any legally binding agreement. That is one of the main uh, causes of the collapse of talks, which have happened several times in the past few years. Secondly, viewers, Al Shabaab, a threat not just to Somalia but to neighboring countries too. Al Shabaab is in control of large territories in Somalia. Al Shabaab members have been carrying out attacks in other countries too, in Kenya, Ethiopia. They have carried out several attacks in recent years, but Kenya, Ethiopia managed to keep Al Shabaab fighters away from their borders. And that is why maybe they deployed their troops to Somalia, because they wanted to keep this threat away from their borders. Last year, we saw that Al Shabaab fighters entered Ethiopian territory in the Somali region of Ethiopia. They managed to make inroads, and for several days, there were heavy clashes between Al Shabaab and military. Mainly Somali region special forces were involved in that counter offensive, and Al Shabaab fighters were pushed out of the Somali region. Despite having a long border with Somalia, Ethiopia has managed to keep Al Shabaab away from its border. And Ethiopian soldiers deployed in Somalia as part of African Union peacekeeping mission, and as a separate arrangement between Ethiopia and Somalia. Purpose is that Ethiopia wants to keep Al Shabaab away from its borders. Now, according to top Ethiopian security organization, Joint Security and Safety Task Force, 14 Al Shabaab members have been arrested in the Somali region. They were planning to carry out attacks in Jigjaga, Somali region's capital, and one of their masterminds was planning to flee Somali region into Kenya through Moyale, which is on Ethiopia-Kenya border. Security forces received information about the man whose name is Ali Abdi, and he was arrested while he was fleeing Ethiopia. Weapons have been shown to recovered from these Al Shabaab fighters. Now, I want to make 2 points. Firstly, Al Shabaab has been trying to gain a foothold in Ethiopia. There is no doubt about that. The problem is that the statements of Ethiopian security forces cannot be trusted. You saw what happened this last week. That Thai Dandia was shown as a terrorist. OLA flag was shown recovered from his house. Weapons were shown as if recovered from his house. And even some government officials raised questions. Prosperity Party members questioned the operation in which the recovery of weapons was made. So no one clearly knows what Ethiopian security forces are doing. They can paint anyone, they can declare anyone as a terrorist. The next day, the terrorist could be freed. That is why it's difficult to trust the reporting of Ethiopian intelligence agencies, Ethiopian security agencies, Ethiopian National Defense Force also. But mainly, this safety and security joint task force has turned into a very unreliable source of information. Whatever this task force says, generally there is political propaganda behind the statements of this joint task force, which consists of federal police, intelligence agency, Ethiopian National Defense Force, and cyber security agency of Ethiopia as well. I thank for watching.